Hello, Monique. Thank you for being here. My name is Alfonso. On behalf of the Mexican blog slash YouTube channel Retumba, we like to report on the new age of extreme music. And well, as such, we are delighted to have you here representing your band Reliqa, which is about to release the first album, Secrets of the Future. And I'm really excited to talk about it. How are you today?
Oh, I'm so well. The pleasure's all mine. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Honestly, I only recently discovered your band like a few weeks ago with the single Starkill, and I was like, wow, here's a new band that sounds fresh, and with its own personality. Then after a quick research on YouTube, I find out that it's actually you are pretty worldly known by now. So anyway, thank you for making me feel out of touch. Now is my time. Now is my moment to discover your music.
I'm so glad you're enjoying it. Yeah, there's a little something for everyone in our discography, I think. And I mean, of course, it's a pretty small discography at this point. We haven't released our debut album yet, but that's
Yeah,
coming. And
yeah.
that's why we're here, I suppose. So, yeah, I hope that it can broaden our audience, even further and sort of make our circle just that little bit bigger with this album.
Well, your music has reached to the coast of Mexico now, I'm from Mexico. Uh,
I'm so glad to hear.
I went back to revisit your catalog, your first EPs,
hmm
Eventide, and I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
know what I am. And I was hooked, strongly
Oh,
hooked with your
cool.
music. Your
Oh,
music,
great. That's
your
so
music
good.
is really, really cool. And of course, since I was offered to have this conversation with you, I must say yes, and
Oh,
here we are.
wonderful.
Well, before we get into the full album conversation, just an icebreaker question here. Do you believe in ghosts or have experienced something similar to paranormal experience?
Ghosts. I do believe in ghosts. I don't lean too far into that belief. I just think that anything is possible. I like to believe that anything could exist, anything is out there. And I don't know if I have personally had do you, I've seen signs, I believe in signs from,
Mm-hmm.
another world sort of thing, like something of a ghostly presence, but not so much like the paranormal figure, if that makes sense. Like it's such a good question. I just think anything is possible, really. And yeah, I think it would be silly not to believe in ghosts, It's like someone saying, "Do you believe in aliens?" Like, of course I believe in aliens. Definitely there are more things out there. This universe is so huge. So millions of things are possible. So I just like to keep an open mind.
So you don't rule out the existence of neither of these things.
That's right. Yeah, I don't rule it out.
But let's say ghosts do exist. What do you think these entities will be? Like something spooky or unhaunted and malignant, or something more positive? Like,
I like to think it's something more positive than that. I like to think, when I think of ghosts, I just think of all the people who have existed on this earth, right?
mm,
Or throughout all time. And they all have left, they've all left a little mark on the places that they've been, sort of thing. So they've walked the earth and they've left their little marks, they've left their little signs that they've been there. And
like
so
energy.
yeah, energy. Yeah. So I think that if you were to say you were to walk somewhere and you feel a certain energy, that's just someone from a past life or someone who has once existed in that place,
Mm,
who's maybe experienced something really significant in that place. I think we're all connected in a way. So I think that there's definitely an opportunity that if people have passed, they've still left something here for us to like discover and explore. And obviously that can be a sad thing. That can be a like it doesn't have to be positive energy, but it doesn't have to be negative energy either. It can be the most amazing thing happened in this spot right here, like 300 years ago, I just can, and so you can feel that, I think.
yeah.
Um, Yeah, this is such an
we,
interesting.
we have been giving bad press to ghosts over the years, over
Oh yeah,
generations,
yeah. I think they
and
get a bad rap.
and aliens too. Maybe they are friendly after all, and we are, frightened by them
That's so
or
right, and
their
I think that
existence.
it's such a human thing to immediately assume the worst in something or someone. So I think that it's best to just keep an open mind and to if you project positivity onto the world, I think you will receive positivity back. So that's why I like to think like, hey, ghosts are just like us. They just lived ages ago.
Can you imagine how would you react to seeing something that defies logical explanation?
Oh, I mean, I'm pretty bad when it comes to horror movies, you know. I jump at any sudden sound. I love scary movies. I love ghost stories,
I
but
hate jump scares. No, not
oh,
for
I'm
me.
so bad at that. I'm so bad. I went to go see a movie recently with my sister, and we walked out and she said, "Why did you take me to this? You had your eyes like this the whole time." And I said, "Yeah, but it's fun. It's like, I don't know. I think that my reaction would be instantly terrified, of course,
Mm.
but I don't know if I can like if I can have a conversation with the ghost, then maybe it would be fine.
The, the the curious aspect of it, or asking them questions,
Yeah,
outside of.
curious. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's so right. Yeah.
Over there in Australia, what's the folk belief in ghosts? Are they popular, or are there traditions or legends over there?
Well, in Indigenous culture, I'm not Indigenous, so I can't speak too much to it, but I have been learning a lot about it. I learned a lot about it through school. There's a there's a there's a sort of subculture called the dream time or the dreaming. And basically, this doesn't necessarily have to do with ghosts, but there is an element of like the spirit of the past sort of
Mm,
woven into it. And it has to do a lot with creation. And so a lot of the Aboriginal Australians, they have very strong beliefs about how Australia came to be and how every corner of this country or every corner of the globe, really, every rock, every stream, every mountain has some kind of story behind it and people behind it. So, and this goes back centuries, millennia. This is years and years of deep history. So, in Australia, I think that like that would probably be the closest thing to a folklore that we have, is Aboriginal storytelling about their elders and the part like the people in the past and their elders, are still with them today
mm.
in present sort of thing. So I wouldn't say it's so much to do with like ghosts or spooky stories or anything like that. It's more the
About
presence of people from the past and kind of what I was talking about, how everywhere you go has some kind of energy and some kind of significance. And
Yeah,
yeah, so I find that really fascinating.
perhaps about spirituality and such things, right?
Yeah. I'm like I said, I just like to keep an open mind to everything. I don't have any particular beliefs in one field or another or religion or anything like that. I just like to hear people out.
Mm,
Everyone has their idea of why we're here. And I
yeah.
think that that is sacred to everyone, sort of thing.
Yes. I like to
Yeah.
keep an open mind with those things too. Here in
Yeah.
Mexico, I don't know if you have heard about Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead.
I have, yeah.
And
The most rich culture we have here is Aboriginal culture,
mm,
and still today these traditions are being upheld. I just can't speak to them because I'm not Aboriginal, so I don't really know the full ins and outs of them. But I do know that these Dreamtime stories, and they have a lot of respect on their elders and the stories that they pass down.
mm,
So when someone passes, it's so like there are laws and rules around how their next of kin pass down their stories and their legend. Like it's really quite sanctimonious and it's really quite special, like yeah, how they honor people from past generations. And yeah, it's something that I'd love to learn more about.
me too. Hopefully,
Mm,
I live to see the day of these things that we often defies our understanding of the world or our reality,
mm.
come to a different understanding or different approach. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about music.
Absolutely. That's a great way to get started. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you, thank you. Before we talk about the album, I would like to take a moment to talk about the music in general. How were
Mhm.
you introduced? How you discovered your taste, your passion, your motivation for music, and what kind of music or artists were your first introductions?
Well, when I sort of started finding my own music taste, a lot of that comes from our families and from our parents, when you're really young and you're just listening to what your parents listen to, and it's only when you become a teenager, and I'll get to that because that's quite interesting, but it's only when you become a teenager that you start developing your own taste. But so when I was younger and as I was like sort of discovering what I enjoyed, we listened to a lot of classic rock like Fleetwood Mac, Pink
Mm.
Floyd, um, um, Led Zeppelin. Like that was a big part of my sort of growing up, just because that's what my parents enjoyed. But when I got to high school, so here in Australia, that's like cut out middle school. It's just we start high school from year 12,
Oh,
from the age of 12, and then
okay.
that's like 18. So when I was about 12 years old and starting high school for the first time, I obviously I felt this sort of, you get this sense of self-discovery and you want to find stuff that you really enjoy.
Mhm.
Um, and that's when I met my friends who are now the members of Reliqa that you know today, because we
Oh,
started Reliqa in high school. So I made little friends. So like I made friends with Miles, who is now our bassist. I made friends with Brandon, who is now our guitarist. Ben is Miles's little brother, so I would go over to Miles's house and he would be
oh.
there, and we'd listen to his CDs. So we'd listen to bands like Disturbed, Slipknot, Evanescence, Shinedown, Linkin Park, all of those like really I like to think of them as gateway bands, bands that sort of
Definitely. They were for me
everyone
too.
had these, yeah, Korn, Limp Bizkit, all of these bands that sort of get you excited about heavy music
So,
because
so you started with the like alternative side of metal, not rock,
yeah.
but metal, something that we call metal.
I think, yeah, I would say so. Yeah. Because I hadn't really listened to too much rock or metal as I was growing up. Not that I didn't enjoy it, but it wasn't really part of my sort of ecosystem. I wasn't really exposed to it. But then when I met my friends and they were really into it because they grew up on this sort of music, I was like, "Oh my God, this is addictive. This is awesome." Like so all of this heavy music, I was like, oh, all of this teenage rage that I'm feeling, someone has explored it in music. So I just latched onto that. And that's when we started, because we used to I don't know if you know these, but you know how because around when I went to high school, we had like the little iPods and stuff that people used to bring to school.
High school,
To
you mentioned you were 12 by the time.
I was around 12, 13 at the start of high school, yeah. And we
Okay,
had
okay.
iPods, and what we used to do is we used to all bring our little headphones, and my friend Shannon, he had something called like a headphone splitter, and he used to plug it into the iPod, and we'd all listen at lunchtime to
Oh,
like the same record. So we'd like
nice.
be crowding around a table, be like, "Oh, like let's listen to like Disturbed's Asylum today," or something like that. And I actually remember they had this, because this was all new to me. My friends had this challenge of who can scare Monique the most through music. So they used to play like all of Slipknot's like interlude tracks where they'd just be screaming, or
Mm,
like all
get
the
this,
really,
get this or die, get this or die.
yes, yeah, yeah, all of that 515 and stuff. And they
Yeah,
play the
yeah.
Heretic Anthem, and they like, who can scare her the most? But I wasn't scared. I was actually in love. I was like, this is so cool. So yeah, and that's like the birth of how Relica started, the band, because we all just used to listen to music together, and we were like, oh, we should like create some of this, we should do it ourselves. And we started picking up instruments, and like started singing, and that's like now here we are, sort of thing.
That's a lovely story because it's something rare to happen.
I hear that.
you're discovering like your own taste or your own affiliation with music, you know, and
Yeah.
with a group of friends that I don't know how much has happened since, but now you have
Oh,
your band.
everything. Yeah, it's been about 12 years that we've been
Wow.
together now making music. And I know that Reliqa has only been around for about 5 or 6 of those years now, like officially in the public eye. But
Right.
well before that, we were listening and we were making music and we were writing.
Mm,
Like we've just sort of been friends. Like our band is like friends first and then a band like as well, sort of thing. Like it's just a
right.
benefit that we get to do this together. So
Actually,
yeah, I owe a lot of my own music taste to Brandon and Miles particularly.
that explains a lot because the first EP it is more grounded and with a more sense of direction than usual.
Yeah.
You have defined a sound, a presence, a personality and it's well, it's very rare. I want to say for a new band, especially a young band with no previous experience in other bands that come out strongly as you guys did.
Oh, well, we've come a long way since our first EP. Like it was definitely I'm so glad that you feel that way. I mean, I obviously feel a little bit of like I cringe a little bit when I think of that EP, like, oh, we were so young,
Really, really.
but only because of I have the hindsight of how far we've come now.
Okay, okay.
I think and it's all also just I think everyone looks back on their own past with a little bit of like
Yeah,
oh a little bit of cringe,
yeah.
everyone is their own worst critic, right? I'm so glad that other people seem to latch on. And there are a lot of people, a lot of bands out there, a lot of my peers have actually removed their first or second record like from their digital streaming platforms, from Spotify, from everything,
Okay.
because they wanted to start fresh with what they have now. And we considered doing that, but we actually decided not to, because I think it's quite an amazing thing to be able to be honest with your fans and say, this is where we started. It might be a pretty shitty recording, but like it's here. This is where we started, but like look how far we've come and look what we've turned into. It's sort of like opening your own like a scrapbook for your fans. It's like here's a journey through like our teenagehood into where we are now. And I think that that's kind of really special. And as a even as a listener of other bands, I really enjoy it when I have access to the really early deep cuts of their discography, and I get to listen to that and be like, whoa, like these guys have changed so much. Like it's just cool. So yeah, we're gonna keep it up. Even though I cringe a little bit at it, I still honor like how special it is, and that it's an important part of our history. So yeah, we'll keep it up.
Yeah, you can reflect on how things were made in the past. Well,
That's right.
in my perspective with the band, it's been only like a month, 4 weeks ago, and I revisited your music, so I'm fairly new to your sound.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I can say, I mean, I can imagine how my reaction. Can't imagine how my reaction will be to listening to that first EP like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, like
Yeah,
so
yeah. It
so
was
fresh.
2016, 2017, I think. Or maybe it was released in 2018, but it was written in like
Ah, okay.
2017.
Wow.
Yeah.
So it goes even back than that.
Oh
Well,
yeah. It's
I
quite a
have
while
a
ago now.
I actually have a soft spot for Australian bands, because I want to say 12 years ago, I was in my late teenage years, and
Mhm.
I discovered bands like Carnival, Dead Letter Circus, and
Oh,
they
amazing.
were a huge influence on my own music taste. Then came Caligula's Horse,
Oh, yeah.
Northlane, which by the way, I don't know you like Northlane, but
Oh yeah,
that's
I'm wearing their shirt today.
wow. Oh, yeah, nice, nice.
Yeah. Well, Josh Smith, their guitarist, he's our
Yes.
manager. So yeah, we have close ties to
Oh,
Northlane. We love Northlane.
nice.
We love Caligula's Horse. We're playing with them in June in Adelaide. We all of these bands like Carnival. We toured with them 2 years ago. They're like huge influences for us as well. Yeah.
Actually, I was gonna ask you something about that because you mentioned Pink Floyd, Mac, Fleetwood Mac,
Yep.
like classic rock bands from the
Classic.
70s,
Yeah.
but
Hmm.
huge bands to be influenced by, like to
Yeah.
open or spread your sensibility with music, your
Yeah.
music sensibilities.
Hmm.
And well, Australia has like a modern rock bands that are honestly um, huge,
Yeah.
emotionally speaking, but also with the music side. I don't know. I just think those bands are the greatest, and usually in Australia, every now and then comes a new band, a new name, and well, of course it's from Australia. Of course, it makes
Of
total
course,
sense.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah. I really do agree that Australia does have some magic here. Like so many of my personal favorite bands are from right here. And what's so interesting about that is that we're all so spread out. Like this has come up in a couple of interviews that I've had a chat with a few people about this same thing. All of these Australian bands that we talk about, if you relate that to the size of the United States or the size of Europe or something like that, we're all positioned several countries apart in terms of like geographic sort of
mm,
location. Like a Carnival, they're from Perth, and that's a 5.5 hour flight from where I am on the
right.
East Coast in Sydney. So we're worlds apart. Of course, the internet has brought us together, and we get to share, our influences and stuff that way now. But so many people lately have been bringing up this interesting fact that I think Australia has so much diversity because we're from such different like parts of this country, which is such a massive country with like basically its own isolated
Yeah,
states, like really far away from each other. And so in the early days, the early 2000s and stuff, when the internet was like still rising through the ranks, social media and stuff, they had and we're also so isolated from the rest of the world. So, experiencing other cultures away from Australia is quite difficult and quite isolated for us. So like back in the day, like Australians, they just had to like sort of rely on their own home to source inspiration. And that's
yeah,
like
definitely.
how it creates such interesting music. Yeah, I love Australian bands, and I'm so grateful that we're like sort of a part of that ecosystem now.
Ecosystem, that's the correct word. And
Yeah.
it's interesting this thing that you're mentioning because something similar happened with a country like Iceland,
Yeah.
which is its
Very,
own
very,
ecosystem. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
I must ask you, which one is your favorite Northlane album?
My favorite Northlane album is Alien. Yeah.
This came
I
out
just,
in 2016, 2017, perhaps?
yeah, it might have been 2018 even.
Wow.
It's one of their newer ones, because they went Alien, Obsidian, and now just recently Mirror's Edge, the EP.
Mm,
I just think Alien was so groundbreaking. It just changed everything. Like what we hear now, this modern proggy metal, like high metallic metalcore, really using those like really dirty synths and stuff like that. I think Northlane were the pioneers for that. When they
yeah.
dropped Alien, everything changed. Bands like Void of Vision, who I love as well, another amazing Australian band. Have you heard of Void of Vision before?
Perhaps
They're, yeah, they've
it
been
rings a bell.
rising through the ranks, like sort of, and they've been really patenting that dirty synthy sound as well. But I think that Northlane just created a movement, and like not a whole lot of people like acknowledge that, I think, and I just really owe it to them that because they've inspired us as well,
Mm,
like in our songwriting. And that I think that Alien and like that was because they changed vocalists, they changed to Marcus.
yeah.
I think that Marcus really shines on that album and just the storytelling of the lyrics, like so heavy and like they're about his own personal experiences. It's just like I owe so much to that album. I know it's one of their more contemporary albums. I know that a lot of people enjoy the deep cuts, and that's great, but I just think that Alien changed everything.
I mean, if anything, it changed anything for you, your appreciation
Yeah.
of the music.
Yeah.
Um, uh, Alien is the one that came out after Note, right?
Oh, yeah, after Node and after Mesmer. Yeah, I can't
Ah,
remember.
okay, okay,
But
right.
yeah. So I think that I can't remember if Node or Mesmer came first, but those two were Marcus's first albums with
Yeah.
Northlane. But then Alien, yeah, I think he really shines in that album.
Well, my
Mm.
favorite is Singularity. Uh,
Yep,
that album
classic.
changed anything for everything for me.
Isn't
But,
that
but but
amazing?
but I like the lyrics especially. You know, like the Adrian lyrics were poetic, and I resonate strongly with his
Yep,
view of things. Definitely.
yep, yep.
I don't know if
Yeah,
you like Singularity.
sorry?
Do you like Singularity?
I do. I love Singularity. Yeah, it's just I think when it comes to like um the album I keep going back to, like the one like I enjoy Singularity, but I just think that where they are now, because they've been a band for quite some time now, 10,
Yep,
15 years, something
15
like that.
years.
I think I just think they found themselves in the last few years. They found like because John Daly, he does a lot of the synths for them and
Mm,
like guitars and synths and stuff like that, production sort of thing. I think he's really like flourished lately and really shaped their sound into something that's so like diverse. I think
mhm.
it's just cool. Yeah.
We're talking about like your uh, this discovery years, for music.
Yeah.
So that interaction with your friends, your closest friends, musically speaking, let's say,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, sparked the motivation to start your own band, right?
That's right.
To
Yeah.
to rehearsal and discover more music, etc. Correct?
Yeah.
Um, I'm intrigued by your voice. To me, it sounds very unique, and I'm not just saying that. Believe me. Um, Keep in mind that the first song that I hear from Reliqa, is
Yep.
Killstar. Okay, and your voice there is in 2024. After Spirit Box, after all these gems, music gems, we I am used to listen to something similar uh, all over the place, influences, which is
Yep.
understandable.
Hmm.
But when I listen to your voice and over your music, it's definitely very authentic, very unique, and we as music fans like are craving for that, something that has its own identity, and in
Thank you.
that is actually not regular.
Yeah.
I don't know if you have like an intention to. I mean, you just took the microphone and sing, and that is your voice. You didn't have like any intention behind that or beyond that.
It's I've definitely over the years I've definitely like come into my own as a vocalist and I've sort of
Mm,
discovered who I am and what I enjoy and that's why I think the album feels very signature, I think, to like myself and just it ultimately I just write to sound like me. I know
mm,
that that sounds really cliche. I definitely have vocal inspirations. Don't get me wrong. Serge Tankian from System of a Down is a huge inspiration of mine.
mm,
Um, but I'm not trying to sound like anybody else, like you can listen to a band, like say you listen to Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, and you say, oh, like he just has this amazing like signature sound. I really want to chase that as well. And you can train your voice to sound like Chester or to sound like whoever you're trying to chase. And that's an honorable thing in itself because, um that takes training, it takes guts and it takes like years of hard work. But other like in my case, I hear all these amazing vocalists, if we're talking like even like if we're talking the modern hip hop perspective, I love the way that Doja Cat raps. Like she's got this really cool like lazy flow, and I just sort of try to like emulate that as well. But I think of these amazing vocalists, and I listen to them, they inspire me, but I'm not trying to sound like them. I'm just trying to like do my own spin on what I think that I would sound like using similar techniques. And the result is just something that has turned into something I'm comfortable with, something that feels like me. You know, like for example, a lot of people ask me why I don't scream or if I'm going to scream in the future.
I was gonna ask you about that.
Yeah, there
Please
you go.
continue.
Yeah, well, a lot of people ask me, yeah, are you going to scream in the future, or why don't you do it, or are you trained in it, or whatever? And I guess the answer that I always come to is, I think that one day I might, you know, never say never. We were talking at the start. We like to be open-minded here. We like to open up lots of different possibilities. And there are some like unclean elements to my voice. You know, there's a little bit of harsh vocals on the album. There's some rap that has like a bit of hoarseness to it. But ultimately I keep coming back to this answer that's like, I like to just work with something that sounds like me. And I think it's more impressive to be able to show off what you can do with a repertoire that like a skill set that's like this big, instead of having every technique under the sun and just using all of it, you know, like just doing it all. I mean, I think that that's also impressive, don't get me wrong, but I like to work within my own limitations, you know. So the fact that I can't scream, it's like, okay, I get given a demo or like from Brandon, he'll give me this heavy demo and I'll go, what do I do with this? Okay, I can't scream. So, I mean, I can scream, but I often I choose not to, and I'm not really going down that path. But it's a matter of, I'm like, okay, what can I do with the skill set that I have? You know, like what kind of diverse sounds can I make? And how can I make it sound like something that people enjoy listening to? It's a challenge, I think, not screaming in my songs. Like yeah, I'm not a very good screamer. Like I said, oh yeah, I can do it, but only very minimally, you know. I don't have heaps of range with screaming. So I think that that's kind of a part of why our music is so diverse, because I get given a demo to write vocals to, and I go, all right, well, I can't do this and I can't do this. So like I have these skills to work with. How am I gonna come across this challenge? And that's
Yeah.
yeah.
It forces you to be creative in different ways.
That's it. That's exactly right. It forces you to be creative with what you've got. And
Yeah.
that's what I love. It makes me feel passionate as a songwriter. So I keep doing it. And really, like I said, never say never. I may scream on album 3, but for now, I really like this pocket that I'm working with. So I think I'm gonna keep sticking to it.
Okay, so I strongly resonate with the things that you are describing here. But first, let me just say, here in Retumba, we are the obnoxious type of fans who expect great things for our own bands, you know, with
Yeah.
the bands that we invest time and energy and emotion. And as of now, I have adopted Reliqa to one of my bands, and I expect great things from the band in the
Okay,
future.
well, I will do my best to deliver.
And I trust that you will only get better with time.
Oh,
But
good.
as I was discovering your sound, your voice is definitely special. Of course, the music is great, but I'm speaking with the vocalist, so let's talk about the voice, right?
True, that's true.
um, Sometimes when you listen to a heavy band which does screams, and every now and then does like a clean voices, that
Yeah.
is good, it's great, but that is formulaic. Like I don't often appreciate music that sounds or that make music for the sake of the style or what is
Yeah.
expected of the style, right?
Yeah.
And what I've discovered in your music that you create songs in the realm of styles and different textures and colors, etc. Right? And
Yeah.
to me, the fact that you don't scream, well, before this album, you know, the previous records,
Maybe
me,
one day.
maybe one day.
Yeah.
To me, it felt like something like what is the word? Um, Deliberatively, like
It is deliberate. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's like a statement. Sorry,
I love
behind
it.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, nice. I love that you don't scream. I love that you keep things fresh with your own set of tools. You know.
Yeah, no, I think that as the years have gone on, it's become more and more deliberate because as in the beginning, the early Afterlight and Eventide, that these really like quite early writings of ours, I was quite insecure about the fact that I couldn't scream, and I was trying to work my way up to it, and I actually had in the early days of my vocal career, I had what's called muscle tension dysphonia. So it's I'm not sure if you're aware, but basically just like it's you can heal from it and it gets worse and better and worse and better and
Okay.
worse. It's basically inflammation of the vocal folds sort of thing. So it makes you become more fatigued when you're singing, like more tired. It's more difficult to get through a set. It can even be difficult to get through a day of speaking. So it was quite tough on me, and I didn't quite have the stamina to be able to do these amazing, wicked things with my voice. So these early days, I was forced to learn how to be creative with quite a limited range. And of course, I've improved that with time, and I'm a lot healthier today, which is amazing. But I think that process taught me that I sometimes it's amazing. It's a gift to be able to work with a limitation. Like you said, it makes you be creative. So rather than being ashamed of it, and look, sometimes I do lapse into that. Oh, like, would people like us better if I could do those heavy vocals? Like, just the like us being our own worst critics, as we were talking
Mm.
about earlier. Sometimes I do lapse into that, but more so lately. I've been feeling a lot more confident and powerful, like empowered by the fact that I don't scream, and sort of trying to treat it more as a challenge and more as an art form in itself, and like just trying to make it part of Relica's signature sound. When eventually, like, because of course we're still rising up, but eventually I want people to be able to think of Relica and hear that voice. Like um that's what we do with all, like, we think about we think about Disturbed, we think about David Draymond's like incredible voice. We think about Slipknot, we think about Corey Taylor's incredible voice, and that's not like to discredit the instrumentation by any means. Like, I want them to feel that as well, but um in order to become a voice that people can recognize and respect, later on, you need to be feeling respect for that as well. You need to
Mm.
be
Yeah.
proud of that. So I'm creating something I think that is quite unique, and it comes for I just think it's interesting that it comes from such a sad limitation, this tension that I used to feel in my voice. It's evolved into something that's like kind of
That,
cool.
that's art. It's not a sport. It's art. You know.
It is, yeah.
Uh, Ultimately, and the positive segue to this is if you one day decide to screen vocals, I know that it will be because the song asks for it. You know.
That's exactly right.
There are a
Yeah.
few artists, fairly new artists. For example, one is Helga from Sweden, which doesn't do screen vocals. But
Hmm.
there's one song in their debut album that features one segment of screaming vocals, and
Yeah.
it made a huge impact. So I imagine something similar for the moment you decide to do a screaming.
That's exactly right. Yeah. It's all for impact. And if we start using our voice as just something to fill the space, people just become disinterested.
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, it's all about keeping people engaged and interested. And actually, I mean, this might be a little bit of a segue, but like the song The Flower on our album, track 4,
Okay.
there is towards the end, there's like a pretty intense like breakdown, very doomy. And the vocal leading up to it, it's a spoken word vocal, but then there is a moment of scream. And so that's the only time really on the album that I scream. So it's all for impact. It's all artistic choices.
But
Yeah.
it's kind of hidden in the mix. Well,
Yeah,
it's not
yeah.
that much present.
It's a little bit of a tease, I think, because
Yeah.
it's kind of it's a bit self-referential as well, because it's kind of me nodding to the fact that so many of our fans wonder, oh, is she going to scream? Is she not? Is she going to? Is she not? So I'm like, well, I'll give you a little bit, just a little bit, but
You are keeping us in our toes,
that's
so to
right,
speak.
yeah. And I think that's a huge part about what Reliqa stands for. Yeah, they always keeping it interesting, always taking a different turn that no one really expects. So yeah.
Are you confident about the direction or the result of this album?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, I'm nervous for how people are going to receive it, and I'll always be like it's on May 31st when the album comes out. It's no longer ours, it's the world's, and however they take it, like we will graciously receive it, even if it receives criticism. We will graciously receive that because we've just created something that we feel confident in and we feel so proud of it. And I think that in terms of direction, like you were asking, it just feels like, because we've gone from the a record titled I Don't Know What I Am, which is very, I mean, it's all in the title. It's taking twists and turns. It doesn't really know how to identify. But this album, Secrets of the Future, is more about we know who we are now. We're at the beginning of a very long process of self-discovery, but we've taken a very important step in that self-discovery, I think. So we don't know who we are forever, because we're not going to make the same music forever. Like we're going to evolve. Like bands like Bring Me the Horizon are a perfect example of bands who evolve with the times, and people who enjoy what they like they write what they enjoy writing. And I think that that's something that we're going to chase as well. But at this point in time, like this snapshot of where we are right now, it is us to a T. Like it feels very signature and it feels very self-assured, I think. So yeah, I'm very very confident about the statement that it makes for us as people.
Um, yes, I do agree with that, taking a step forward
Yep.
into whatever you will become in the future, because it feels like something, what is the word? Transitioning into something bigger,
That's right. Yeah, it's definitely a transitional period for us, because if you think about it, we're at a stage in our career where we're becoming no longer a big fish in a small pond, but a small fish in a very big pond alongside giants. We're getting these opportunities that we're playing alongside bands that we've only dreamed of playing alongside. So it's like the pond is getting a lot bigger, the fishbowl, I should say. And so we're definitely transitioning into one of those career bands, and I hope that people acknowledge that. And we're transitioning in more ways than one as well, not only in our sound but in our image, I think, because like with this album campaign, we've made an intentional effort to show people what we look like and like who we are as people, sort of thing. Like obviously with the beauty of social media these days is people can not only think of a band and hear them, but they can think of a band and see them. They see the logo, they see the faces. And so yeah, this album has been our introduction to, even though we've reached a global audience before, which is phenomenal, and so we're so grateful for that. This album, I think, is our introduction, like our debut to the world on a wider scale. So we want people to be able to recognize, like, okay, put a face to the name, sort of thing, put a face to the sound. So, yeah, we've worked really hard on the styling of the album and the aesthetic behind the album. So that's a really cool part of that transition as well.
I want to ask you about the pre-production process and the production process of this album, because it feels so spacious, big in atmospheres. Like
Yeah,
you cannot see the end result of a song with this type of songs until it's produced, right? Because
absolutely.
it
Yeah.
has so many touches and so many layers on top of that, voice,
Yes.
vocal effects, all of that. How do you approach your lyrics and the sentiment of your lyrics and your vocals, knowing that what you're hearing to be inspired is not necessarily the finished product?
That is, I just want to say that's such a great point that you've made about how we don't know what a song's going to sound like until after, like once everything is done. And I
Right.
think that that's such a key part of our music. Like there are a couple of songs on this album that we didn't necessarily know they were going to make it. We didn't know like just one or two songs we were like, oh, like we're not quite there yet, like when it's done, technically we've written everything we need to write, but it didn't quite have that magic yet until the very last moment when we were basically submitting the album. Like we were right on the deadline and we were listening to these new songs and something just clicked in some kind of magic just worked. And I owe a lot to our producer, Chris Blancato, for that, because he just created some magic, like we all did it. It was a very collaborative effort. But
First time working with the band or has worked
no,
with the
he
past?
did I Don't Know What I Am as
Okay.
well. But
Okay.
that was our first. Okay, so in terms of the question that you actually asked about writing the album, and so we worked with Chris Blancato on I Don't Know What I Am. He did some pre-production with us, and the songs were ultimately ours. Like the band, we wrote them, and he sort of helped us like shape them a little bit. But then ultimately we just recorded, and he produced, mixed, and mastered the album. But during that process, we had a lot of chemistry with him as a producer and as a friend. So we sort of together we decided, okay, look, like the next step's going to be an album. Can we do this together? Let's make a plan. I remember it was a very organic process. Like we got together one night and we were just chatting, and he was like, look, guys, I really want to make an album with you. And we said, yeah, like we want to we need to make an album, that's the next step. So it just sort of happened. And he was such an instrumental part of the process. So basically, when we were writing this album, we took an intentional, we challenged ourselves with our songwriting. We literally we created these challenges for ourselves,
Mm.
sort of thing. So because ultimately we used to write our songs sort of in a very production line style of writing. So say Brandon or Miles would drop an instrumental demo in our Dropbox. We would
Okay.
listen to it. I would say, yep, there's something here. I would write some vocals to it, send that off, and then Ben would write some drums to it. We'd have a song, we'd go and record it. It was very, while it worked for us, it was kind of stale. It was getting a bit stale, we didn't have that sense of connection together. So we wanted to experiment by actually getting into a writing room together. Like, so we started off with myself and Brandon, our guitarist, and Chris, and we got together and we got into the studio and we had nothing prepared. That was the goal. We had nothing prepared and we just wanted to see what happened. Brandon brought his guitar. He played a little bit of Chris just said, okay, just riff. Like he put a plug-in in and he said, okay, just play some riffs. And so Brandon was just improvising, and then I would say, oh, that sounded really cool. Like, oh, that yeah, I liked that. I liked that. And so together we'd sort of build this soundscape, like this riff. And then I had literally a pen and paper, which I've never done before. And I just wrote words. I just wrote lyrics to it. They could have been nonsense, they could have been absolutely nothing, but that was the challenge because I'm a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to my vocals. So Chris said, throw all of that out the door
Mm.
and write something that feels good, feels real. So I did. It just happened. Like there was some magic in that room that day, and it it ended up being a wild success. So we did that a couple more times. I'm not saying every song on the album was written that way, but a lot of them were, and it sort of just changed the way that we write. And so the lyrics on this album are a lot more personal and introspective, and like they feel more real just because they were just what was coming to mind right in that moment. And that's really hard. Like I struggled a lot to do that, but I've been refining it. And of course there were little adjustments that I made later on and stuff like that, but ultimately this process was so organic and so fresh and something that we've never done before. And I think that's why there's so much heart in the album, like so much heart and soul, because it really was just us, like to our most authentic form, because it was just Brandon playing something that felt right and me shaping that into a way that felt right. And the same goes for when Miles entered the scene with his bass and the like, because he writes a lot of the synths and stuff around the album. Like it just building soundscapes that feel good rather than ones that technically should be right, you know?
Right.
And yeah, I think that sort of that experimentation made the album feel a lot more authentic. Yeah.
Well, it's great that you describe this because one, it speaks about trust within the band, trusting each
Trust.
other.
Yeah. Yes.
Also the chemistry and the experimentation of the process because it's something new for you and the rest of the band.
Yeah.
And also the fragility of the songs. Like it's like playing Jenga, right?
Yes.
It, it,
Yes.
it can fall apart but you guys understand very well each other that the result is this album.
That is such a great analogy. Yes, that it feels so true. Everything that you're saying is so right to our process. Yeah. There was a lot of risk involved with what we were doing as well. You know, like this Jenga tower, it could collapse at any time. Because it's a tense process. Like Chris would like he was literally basically playing games with us in the way that he would say, okay, now I want Brandon and Monique together in the room. Like, and there was a sense of exclusion for a minute, but then it would be, okay, now I want Miles and Ben in the room. Like it was, we had to have a lot of trust for each other, being like, okay, like, let's not let this affect our friendship. We're just like, we're figuring this out as we go. But eventually it all came together. And we created an album that felt so true to who we are as people, and I couldn't be more happy with the process. Yeah.
Let me ask you, do you have a favorite song overall?
This is a tough one. I at the moment have been saying that I'm going to give you a different answer. I've been saying The Flower has been my favorite song because I just love the groove behind it and I love the lyrics. But I'm going to say that Two Steps Apart is my favorite song at the moment.
Two
And I
Steps
think
Apart. Okay.
Two Steps Apart, that's track 10. It's so sentimental to me, and I think that it's the reason that I'm saying this right now, that this is my favorite song, is because of this discussion that we've just had about the songwriting process, and I'm just having these memories about writing that song because the band we went on a like a retreat sort of thing. We went to the Snowy Mountains, which are about 6 hours away from where we're based. And we stayed in this little house, and we brought our instruments, we brought our production set up. Like Chris came as well. So there was the 5 of us in this house for a week, and we basically wrote a whole lot of the album together in this very organic sense. And Two Steps Apart was one of those songs. So I remember waking up one morning, and I came out, I stumbled out, it was like 8 a.m. or something. And Chris and Brandon said, hey, Mon, like, we've got something for you. And I sat down in front of the speakers, and they played the opening riff, and like they had some draft drums. Ben had drafted up some drums to it or something like that. And I just sat back and my mind was just blown. I was like, this feels so good. Like it was so different. Like that song is so different to anything we've made before. And it's honestly not a heavy song either. It's more like shoegaze, and it's a bit more like like an atmospheric rock track sort of thing. You could liken it to bands like Carnival in a way, some of their softer songs. I even hear there's this Australian band called Bloom. They're like a post-hardcore band. I even hear a bit of post-hardcore in there, you know, like a post-rock sort of thing, very dreamy, very atmospheric. And I was like, instantly I had ideas. So I was just scrolling them down on the paper and ultimately, and I just remember staying up so late that night and we worked entirely on that song all day and we had it basically finished by the end of the day. And I honestly, like, because songwriting is such a transformative process. This is going to sound really, really lame to a bunch of people who don't get it, but I know that you get. I'm not sure if you're a songwriter, but you would get it if you are. The I had a bit of a cry later that night. I was crying listening to the song, just being like, we did that. Like we made this and it feels so raw and authentic. So yeah, I think I'm going to say that's my favorite song. I know that was a long-winded process to explain it, but just the sentimental value behind that song cannot be described.
I appreciate to reach to that moment in this conversation.
Yeah.
Final questions here. 3 final questions, if you allow me.
Of
Okay.
course.
One, I know that this record is a lot about self-pressure or the pressure to do in life, but also becoming more professional with your own pursuits in the band.
Yeah. Yeah.
Also about expectations, maybe from the fans or from your family. I don't know.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So let me take a positive spin on that. What is your happy place?
My happy place.
On the internet or in life?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I know that I think I already described my happy place. My happy place is being in the room with my band, making music. I don't know. There's just something magical to it. Or being on stage, like, oh my God, I love being on the stage. Every time I go to a concert that I'm not playing, I just think I want to be up there. I want to be doing that right now, you know, and thankfully I'm having the opportunity to do that more and more. Ever since we toured with the band Baby Metal last year, everything changed for me because we played the biggest stages that we've ever played. We were playing to thousands of people every night and packed out rooms. And I was just like, I felt a high that I've never felt on that stage. So yeah, that's my happy place. And that is where I think I feel the most me. Yeah.
Lovely, lovely. Now do you have, sorry, I have to come up with this question
Of course.
after that answer. Now that you have the experience of, you know, like of thousands of people in front of you, would you think that that also make an impact in how you approach your melodies and I don't know, create those moments that you want in the audience?
Yeah, I think so. I think in a very natural way, it's sort of shaping my like I'm not doing anything with the idea that I'm like, oh, this has to be you know, this has to be perfect on stage. I have to sacrifice my creative liberties just to make it right for on the stage. Like it doesn't feel like a sacrifice to me. It's more like one of those creative limitations that we were talking about earlier.
Okay.
Like, okay, what like you know, the fans really respond well to this song or whatever. So I'm like, okay, maybe I'll use sort of the ideas that I had in that song in this new song, and create it in a sort of new way. So it's yeah, it very naturally shapes my songwriting, but not in a way that feels like forced, if that makes sense.
If it's forced, it's not entirely wrong because, for example, a song like "We Will Rock You" from Queen, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, the engagement,
Right,
the
right.
audience engagement is a huge part. Like there are definitely a few songs on the album where we were writing a section, like say for example in Terminal, which was the first single that we wrote. The bridge of that song, our instinct was to sit on that for maybe 4 bars and then move to something different because that's what we used to do. We used to never really sit in one place for too long. But we said, hang on, this could be a really great opportunity to just ride on a beat for a little while. Let's just sit there for a minute and have everyone like hands up. Like, and so we've played that live and it goes really well. And it's just, yeah, those sort of fun moments, they do inspire your music in a way.
Second to last question. Well,
Yeah.
it comes with a suggestion. As you were describing the process of this album with your band, I want to recommend you two artists. One is very minimal. It's a trio, lovely
Okay.
voice. I have a crush on the singer.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh,
the voice of the singer.
yeah, of
Uh,
course.
um, is Big Brave from Canada. I don't know if you have heard of them. They
Okay,
was
I'm gonna write it down.
especially their newest album. It came out a week ago, perhaps. Yeah,
Yeah,
Big Brave.
awesome. Okay.
The other one is Thief from Los Angeles, California. One is very minimal in their new album, and the other one is pretty much the opposite, very maximalism.
I love
Full
it.
full of things, but it's mechanical, but it bursts beauty throughout. I mean, and you don't expect something this ugly to be beautiful also. And
Mm-hmm.
in with the minimal band Big Brave, it's also poetic, beautiful, drenching. I want to suggest you those bands.
I'll definitely check them out. Thank you.
And if you want to recommend me some bands, please.
Ooh, okay. Well, what do you like to listen to? You love heavy
Uh,
music? Anything.
Anything, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I love.
Well, someone that has inspired me a lot. Well, okay, Void of Vision. I'm going to give you Void of Vision first because I mentioned them earlier. They are amazing. They've picked up this industrial cyberpunk sound. They're like a
Okay,
metalcore band, but they've got this really interesting industrial sound to them. And they're from Australia, and they're doing incredibly right now. They're touring everywhere. They're doing amazing. So I'll write that down. Void of Vision.
yeah,
And they're
thank
from
you.
here. They're from Melbourne, I think, in Australia. And another another band that inspires me a lot, that are another Australian band actually. They're the band Deadlights. They're from Queensland, Australia.
Mhm.
They're quite small actually. They're quite an underground band. But their album The Uncanny Valley. It came out, it's their most recent album.
Okay.
Just the lyricism on that album and the interplay between harsh vocals and this gorgeous clean vocals from his name's Tynan. I know them personally. They're beautiful people and an amazing band. So yeah, Deadlights. And I'm gonna give you another Australian artist, but this is not heavy. This is not metal at all. Her name is Odette.
Oh, that.
And she's, I guess you could say, a pop artist, but more like contemporary poetry in music. Like she makes her lyrics are just amazing, and her album To a Stranger, the one with the red album art, is just
Okay.
incredible. Yeah.
Uh, two names came in my head. One is Lucian Blomkamp from Australia. I don't know if you're familiar with his work. Lucian Blomkamp.
Oh, I don't think so.
Oh, lovely. Lucian Blomkamp.
Okay.
And the other one is about pop. Sometimes a duo, Kafu and Wafia.
Oh yeah, yeah. I think the name sounds familiar, but I don't think I've listened to them.
Kafu, and there's a presentation on YouTube on the uh, Sydney Hall, the famous Sydney Hall. I
Mhm.
don't know, can remember the name.
Okay,
Uh,
okay.
Wafia, sorry, it's Wafia, not Wafi.
Yeah, oh Wafia. Yeah, yeah, I do know them. Yeah, yeah. I think I saw them live a few years ago.
Wow,
Yeah, really cool.
yeah. Well, but in that case, please pay attention to the other recommendations. I think you
Yeah, I
will
will.
discover something very interesting and very special with them.
Definitely. Yeah, thank you for those recommendations.
Final question: if you could relate the topics or what is in your mind about Secrets of the Future with another form of work, a movie, a painting, a book, which one will you choose and why?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Um, you know what? I'm gonna say the movie Interstellar. I know
Mm,
it is Christopher Nolan. I know that everyone loves that movie, and I'm no different. I'm just like everyone. I adore that movie. And I think I'm thinking about the themes behind the album and this. I mean, of course, like that album, that movie is set a few years in the future, but not too far in the future. It feels realistic. It feels grounded. Have you seen Interstellar?
Of course, of course.
Yeah, of
Yeah.
course you have. Yeah, everyone's seen that movie.
Is your favorite Christopher Nolan movie? Sorry. Is
I
it your
think it is
favorite?
I think
Okay.
it is my favorite Christopher Nolan movie. I mean, he's amazing. Like he's one of my favorite directors, but yeah, I keep coming back to Interstellar. And just this I think it's the interplay between fear and love in that movie, you know, fear and hope. Like you've got this intense like terror for what's coming for the future, but then there's also this like the younger generation, like Murph in the movie, you know, grows
Mm.
up to be amazing and have this amazing life, and there's just this sheer devastation, but also this beautiful growth. And I think that is something that's so core to the album and part of like its heart, like is this obviously there's a terror for the future, and like songs like Killstar express that anger and like desperation for change, you know, that we need to be able to survive. But then there's songs like Two Steps Apart, like the one I was talking about, where it's this sort of reverence for what we have now and for where we're going, and like and for the relationships that we have. And I just, yeah, I think that is probably my closest answer. And I love
Very,
that movie. So any chance to discuss it is good by me.
very unexpected answer. You know, beyond in the space,
Yeah,
other
yeah,
worlds. But well, thank you. I appreciate the answer. I appreciate your time. Thank you for being here.
of
This was
course.
all from my part. Did you have any last to say to our
No,
audience,
I
please?
just want to say thank you. Thanks for the platform. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about something I love so much. And I loved all of your questions. Like
Oh,
this
well,
was
thank you.
fantastic. Yeah,
Thank you.
I hope we get to link up again in the future.
Hopefully.
And hopefully if we're ever touring in your
Actually,
area, we can,
Mexico. Yeah.
yeah,
Hopefully,
yeah, absolutely. We'd
hopefully
love,
there's a future for Reliqa here.
oh, definitely. Yeah, can't wait.